Welcome to the Verdin Verdict Sports Show. What a game. LSU versus South Carolina had me on the ropes for the entire first half. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was over with. I thought LSU had another L in the column. I didn't think they were going to be able to pull it out. South Carolina jumps out to a 17-0 lead. LSU struggles with the run defense. The penalties everywhere, all over the field. I believe they had 3 penalties in the first quarter for 35 yards, constantly shooting themselves in the foot. The offensive line struggled to protect Nussmeier, but somehow, some way, they were able to pull it out in the end. I think eventually they were able to kind of make some adjustments, fill into their gaps a little bit better. I mean, Nussmeier still got rattled, though. Defense, they showed improvement. I'm not going to lie. I know they had their moments. I know people were pissed. Sellers gets up the middle. Juke Sage Ryan goes right to the end zone for an 80-plus yard touchdown. Right before that, the drive before, Sage Ryan forces a fumble with a sack. Harold Perkins comes up with the recovery. They had some ups. They had some downs. It was a roller coaster game. It made your heart rattle the entire time. But, hey, we knew it would be. We knew it would be a closer game. We knew that LSU would be potentially in the driver's seat. But, I mean, good Lord. It looked like they were hanging on for dear life. It looked like they got ran over, and then they were, fighting and clawing and trying to force their way into the driver's seat. Eventually, they got into it. I'm glad that they came out with the win because a loss at this point of the season, it ruins your college football playoff chances. And we'll talk a little bit at the end of the show about those potential playoff chances and if they're even legitimate at this point with LSU struggling against teams like South Carolina. Yeah, it's a road game, early in the season, but there's a lot of things that we can take away from this. Some good, some bad. We'll break it all down for you today. First things first, South Carolina, they just dominated the time of possession in the beginning of the game. That was the big factor. We had 3 keys, right? One of them was stop their run, start yours. And they kind of got into it at the end of the game in the second half with Caden Durham and Josh Williams getting active into the end zone. But in the beginning, I mean, Raheem Sanders just killed LSU. They had 10 minutes chewed off the clock in the first quarter. They were in a position where LSU was just, getting pushed around. They really weren't able to get into their I'm not going to say their script or into their fit, but they weren't looking comfortable, that's for sure. Like I said, 17-0 lead they jump out to in the second quarter. You saw South Carolina start in the red zone, held to a field goal. LSU's offense kind of struggled. Caden Durham gets his first touchdown at this point. And let it be known, Matt, at that point in the game, I mean, even, up to 10 minutes afterwards, LSU's entire running back room, only the freshmen had the touchdowns. Josh Williams got in the late clutch, prime time spot to save the game and honestly walk off with a victory pretty much. But, before that, the freshmen were making their presence felt. Juwan Johnson, Caden Durham, another big presence you've got in that running back room now, and he announced, his arrival, so to speak. I think that you definitely have talks at him serving a lot of time at RB2 for sure. I mean, John Emery goes down. He's one of the big names that you're going to see an improvement in production and just overall opportunity for. And he sees in the moment 2 touchdowns. I believe in his first 6 carries, he had 76 yards, 13 yards per carry. He was killing it. He was looking really good. And they had a couple of moments that really made you wonder. You did get to see Kyron Lacey get active finally in the second quarter. He got his first catch. It was a touchdown. We were hoping he would get incorporated, and later on in the game, he made a big catch to get LSU in the red zone to even score that touchdown with Josh Williams. The defense, they had their inconsistencies, but really what helped them out the most was Ashford entering the game, LSU's backup, South Carolina's backup quarterback getting in there and kind of just, like Kirk Herbstreit said, killing or putting the passing game out of action. It was just looking rough. They didn't look like they were able to do much. We kind of knew that their passing game was rough, and they got the majority of their production from the running game prior to this matchup. But just seeing it go through, seeing them kind of just cut through our defensive line, it made you wonder at times. The sacks toward the end kind of helped seal it up. I mean, they had a few turnovers. You saw Zy Alexander get LSU's first interception of the season. And, I mean, there was a time where he looked like he might have been banged up. Hopefully he's feeling good because, I mean, he had a really good performance. He had a really good game. Seeing him alongside Ashton Stamps, I think that there's, a good future in that pairing, if you ask me. Third quarter, LSU's defense stood tall, stopped SC a couple of times. A couple of times it looked like they were physical and they were bringing the heat, and then there was other times where South Carolina looked like they were just pushing them all over the field. I'm not too convinced on if LSU has a physicality to go into a deep playoff push and, actually take it to a team like Ole Miss or Alabama. I think we're going to actually have to start worrying about that. We'll do a box score takeaway real quick, and then I'm going to tell you what I think this performance means for LSU going forward in those big games against those bigger, faster, quite frankly, better SEC opponents. But the offense didn't have, too horrible performance. They led in total yards. They led in the first downs. Eventually, they got that time of possession battle that they needed to address. They needed that. They couldn't have South Carolina just control that game, the entirety of it. Yeah, Nuss got sacked 4+ times. There was penalties everywhere. It was a sloppy performance to get here. It really shouldn't have been that close, but I'd say the secondary kind of played consistent. They had moments where they had a flag or a few busted coverages, but all in all, I mean, it's an improvement on last year. And I think that the rushing game, it did show up for LSU. It had to happen. You had to see, some legs kind of get grown here. They crossed the 130 rushing yard mark. They get 3 touchdowns, 21+ points coming from the ground for LSU in this game. That was big for them. They needed that. Without that, I don't think we're in the situation where LSU's winning and coming out of Columbia with a positive record. But like we were saying, what it means for future games, I think that the defense, they're probably going to have fits against mobile quarterbacks like Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe. They might give them a little bit of trouble. I mean, there's a little bit of blemishes exposed here in this defense now, and I don't think it's a secret, and I don't think people like Lane Kiffin or Kalen DeBoer are going to, just sit back and kind of let the defense just get comfortable like South Carolina let them get today. And it's not like South Carolina had any choice. They had their backup in. They didn't have a deep offensive scheme to begin with. Like we said, rushing game was their focus. If you stop that, you could potentially, cut the head off of them potentially. Alabama and Ole Miss might not be that easy. Alabama and Ole Miss might not be that cut and dry. I think, even a tough environment like A&M, Arkansas, maybe even Florida, you got to start worrying and sweating about. Because if you go on the road to South Carolina and game day comes and you have an early kickoff and you got all this pressure building and it gets to you and it makes you win a 36-33 cutthroat game, or you quite frankly got boat race to open. Now you're in a situation where, people are questioning the legitimacy of LSU and if they're really supposed to be in this top 15 upper echelon. I think, that's a good ranking for them. I think right outside the playoffs right now is probably their best bet. What they're going to have to do going forward is, one, they're going to have to just keep being more I'm not going to say creative on offense because it's really generic, but they're going to have to sprinkle in some more, involvements. I like Xavier Thomas coming out the backfield and running. That's something that you can, maybe lean on. I like Caden Durham having his presence felt. That's something you can lean on. Caleb Jackson had a couple of big opportunities. Excuse me. I think Kyron Lacey obviously needs to get a lot more, attention. Yeah, he got more in the second half, but in the first half, getting his first catch in the second quarter, it just makes you wonder. Sure, I'm sure he's getting schemed out, and I'm sure Chris Hilton's going to help whenever he comes back, but as of right now, you'd like to see that kind of get shaked up. And yeah, all in all, South Carolina, I really think they're a middle-of-the-road team. I don't think this is a team, like a close loss to USC, that's understandable. This close performance against South Carolina, albeit a win, it's going to make a lot of people question LSU and if they're going to be able to make a deeper run. We're really going to get to see what this team is made of in about 3 weeks when they play Ole Miss on October 12th. I mean, we're going to get UCLA and South Alabama back-to-back at home. South Alabama just hung 80+ points yesterday. Hopefully that doesn't happen, or 2 days ago. But when you get into that bye week, it's going to be gut check time because Ole Miss is coming in. They're coming in strong. They have one of the more prevalent offenses, I believe number 1 in total yards entering this week at 730-something yards per game. Yeah, they're playing some crappy schools for the first couple of games, but that's nothing to scoff at. When you're averaging 400, they're almost averaging double your production. So it'll be interesting. LSU's making some people worry. Hopefully they shake some things out. Glad they got a W. Glad they're 2-1. Glad that they do not have multiple losses because that would be it, quite frankly. Thanks to everybody that joined into the post-game breakdown. This has been the Verdin Verdict, sponsored by Happy Dad. Go get it at Albertsons. Go get it at Rouse's. Go get it at Walmart. The best tasting hard seltzer on the market. Gluten-free, no artificial flavors, low in sugar. You know where to get it. Sponsoring your boys. You can get it also, the website in the description. Use code Verdin for 15 at checkout. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.